Friends, it is an unseasonably warm day. I know I like to bring that up every time it happens, but it's not something I like to see go to waste. And therefore, I won't. Now, by default, because of the topic that I've chosen out of the February Creative Challenge prompt through the community tab, we have to go out on this thing. This chromoly threaded bottom bracket piece of machinery. The Breezer, the Thunder. Bring the thunder. The new Ford Bronco is the coolest vehicle of all time. This feels kind of dangerous, but I'm going for it. Okay, so very loose rendition of the topic, all because I'm too stubborn to pull my phone out and actually check what the real verbiage of it is. Okay, stubbornness aside, new innovations that have since been replaced by earlier iterations. Like everyone going back to Euro BB, I assume that means back to threaded bottom brackets over press fit, chromoly, or tubes. Everyone going back to that. Three things. Are people going back to tubes, really? Maybe on road, but definitely I wouldn't say in mountain biking. Now, I'm no industry insider with secret information that I'm withholding from you. No matter how official sitting on this rock next to a lake may make me look. All I can offer is my opinion, my speculation based on my own experience, which is, you know, not as vast as maybe as you'd think. And here's what I do think. When it comes to putting these thready boys in, these cups that thread into the bottom bracket shell of a frame. Why did we go back to that? Because, well, when press fit bottom brackets came into the mainstream, there was promise of weight savings, performance enhancements without taking drugs, 30mm spindles, stiffer bikes, better in every way. Easy to be sold on that. And when you're in a world surrounded by racing, marginal gains, performance at all costs, you can easily be sold on that until someone who's like me, and I believe most people are like me, I believe most people bring their bikes back home in this condition, put them away wet, and let them dry on their own accord. When you do that with press fit bottom brackets, creaking happens quick. And when creaking happens quick, and the only fix is to bring it to someone with the proper tools, because otherwise you'll destroy it, doing weird things like putting Loctite or like, you know, adding grease and then having someone argue with you that like, don't grease it, don't do that, don't do this. I would say the regular consumer, especially the regular wrench, the person who does it at home, that's just a frustrating thing. As enough average riders deal with it, the people who have to deal with their own gear, which is the majority of us, you don't spend your money on the bikes that don't have threaded bottom brackets anymore, the tried and true system. So when companies see that people aren't spending money on press fit bottom brackets, that's the easiest way to vote, they stop making them. I think. I don't know. Apparently that's economics. Easiest way to get change is to vote with your wallet. I imagine there's still press fit bikes on the market, but it's not something I'd ever spend my money on. I'm pretty happy with the old tried and true, serviceable at-home threaded bottom bracket. Where do you suppose that goes? These very rarely actually go anywhere, but if you don't at least go explore a little bit, you'll never know. I don't know how I feel about riding on sticks like this. They have a real tendency to rip these off. However, good news, Harrison, my friend, Bikes on Wheels, where I bought this bike, another one of the guys, Blair, who works there, bought one of these. They converted it to a Rawstercross bike, and they have it running single speed, 34/16 proper chain tension, fixed gear. So if I ever do rip the derailleur hanger off this, we know we're in good shape. Throw a 16 tooth cog on there, boom, single speed. crazy about that. Now, when it comes to the topic of chromoly bikes making a bit of resurgence inside a lot of companies' different lineups, if that is the case for a company that you like, a steel bike is in their lineup and it's sticking around and other versions of it are coming up, I would once again put it down to the almighty dollar, the consumer, the people spending the money, showing companies that it's a desired product. See, me, I've always been a fan of steel because of BMX. Spend a lifetime with a material that's bounced off the ground hundreds and hundreds of times and keeps riding, and you get convinced pretty quick that you're like, okay, this is a pretty strong material, it's for me. Hence why I'm riding this steel 4130 Breezer now. I remember working in the shop, every so often one of the brands that we sold in the store would release a steel model. And I and everyone who worked there, because we all rode BMX, we'd all be pumped. We'd be like, sick! A steel version of that aluminum bike. That's so sick! How cool is that? They'd be a little more expensive, but you knew they were sturdier. You knew they were just like a cooler bike in general, and they would never sell. Like, very rarely would they sell. It was hard. It was like really hard at the time to convince a customer to, like, you know, you spend more to get a steel bike where, like, everyone was kind of peddling and marketing the fact that carbon and aluminum were better. So what I'm kind of getting out of this question, and what I'm seeing with companies continuing to try and succeed creating, manufacturing, and selling and continuing to sell steel bikes, is something that we discussed in ACN when we were kind of just starting, when the pandemic was like really kind of coming into its own. And Russ at Path Less Pedaled would argue that the time is kind of now where people on the internet and what they're into, showing different types of cycling, are the new marketers. So instead of everything kind of being like marketed as like heavy performance influenced carbon, aluminum, road, mountain bikes, whatever, that everything is for racing, now there's this subset that has been, you know, quiet in the mainstream, that's doing something different, that's riding the party pace. And a lot of the party pace riders, they've got a fondness for steel bikes. Now, no doubt more people than ever would be consuming that party pace content and maybe getting a little more exposure to the world of steel bikes and their benefits over, and you know, maybe including, but over aluminum and carbon. And maybe, just maybe, spending their money on a more mass-produced steel version of a bike instead of the recently traditional aluminum and carbon version. But for me, steel is always going to be like the #1. That's why my custom full suspension, which should be here within a month or two, is steel. It's why I'm always messing with old bikes. It's fun to have a material that I can actually weld. And my new bike, this other new bike, is steel. This thing's going to be like my 29er dirt jumper bike thing. I don't know. I like riding it. It's fun to ride around. Anyway,